first of all, I get this, if you like, insight out of nowhere. And from that moment, information, like physical information, if you like, regarding that subject starts coming into my life. And this happened with the moon, because when I started out to write Human Race, Get Off Your Knees, I was not intending to write anything about the moon. And I came in one morning, must be about 18 months ago now, and I sat down in this chair, and the energy in the room changed. And of course, after 20 years, you get to know the sequence. The energy, the atmosphere changed, and I thought, here we go. And clear as anything, through my mind, it just said, the moon's not real. The moon's not what you think it is. And I thought, all right then. Because I've been through the sequence so many times, it's like, okay, well, we'll go with this and see where it goes. So I put in a few keywords into a search engine, and immediately up before me came a book called Who Built the Moon by Christopher Knight and Alan Butler. So I thought, well, let's make a start. I'll read that. So I sent for it, read it very quickly, and it absolutely was pointing in the direction of what I'd just come through my mind, if you like. And you know what it's like? It very much going back to what I've just been talking about. When you come into this world, you tend to accept that what is here is how it is. This is how things are, mate. This is one reason why, we, the generations who've seen a different world to this one, are very, very important and have a very great responsibility, because we, to some extent, have the ability to see how things were, to how they've become. People being born into the world now, all this control and stuff, it's life. This is how it is. Yeah. This is why it's fantastic that so many young people, despite that, have seen through it. But the classic is the moon. The moon comes up. It goes through its sequence every month. And it's the moon, mate. Oh, it's the full moon tonight, look. But when you start asking questions, whoa, I didn't know that. And first of all, the mathematics between the moon, the sun, and the Earth, as documented in this book, Who Built the Moon, are fantastic. As they say in the book, the maths involved in the Earth, Moon, Sun system is nothing less than staggering, and the moon was placed there with the accuracy of the proverbial Swiss watchmaker. And just a few weeks ago, I watched a mainstream scientific program on the BBC. I think it was a program. No, it wasn't a strand. It was a one-off. Do we really need the moon? And this scientist, mainstream scientist, goes on and on about how it's perfectly positioned for its effect on the Earth to give us the kind of world we live in. But then she says, but that it is now perfectly placed to sustain life is pure luck, a cosmic coincidence.
Yeah, right.
Right. So then you realize when you start looking at the moon with an open mind, let the information be the guide. As they say in the book, the moon is bigger than it should be. It's apparently older than it should be, much lighter in mass than it should be, it occupies an unlikely orbit, and so extraordinary that all existing explanations for its presence are fraught with difficulties, and none of them could be considered remotely watertight. Because, again, scientific fact, if you play it back, becomes scientific theory that through repetition has been accepted as fact. So you say, well, how does science say the moon was created? Well, they say the moon was created by a kind of Mars-type planet hitting the Earth in its formation period, and a great chunk coming off and becoming the moon, called the Wack theory. When that didn't follow through in terms of the physics and the logic of it, they came up with a double Wack theory, where the planet smacked into the Earth and then came back and gave it another smack. And you say, you don't know, do you? That's the fact. Never mind that all scientists say. Well, scientists say a lot of things that have been proved wrong. And then you start looking at the size of it. I mean, it's bigger than Pluto.
There's nothing in our solar system that compares when it comes to satellites. It's a quarter of the size in diameter of the Earth. It's incredible, actually.
2,160 miles in diameter, and some scientists talk about a twin planetary system, not even a planet moon system.
Right.
And then you start looking at what some scientists have said when they've looked at the moon, like a guy called Erwin Shapiro from the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics. Great quote. He says the best explanation for the moon is observational error. The moon doesn't exist. And NASA scientists said it seems easier to explain the non-existence of the moon than its existence. And then you start looking at the way the moon has reacted when it's been specifically hit by NASA after they put seismometers up there. And they say that it rang like a bell.
That's right.
And when you look at some of the quotes that they're saying about the moon, you think, well, where are you? Why aren't we pursuing this? Because they don't want us to know that. When they hit it again with an even bigger smack later, it reacted like a gong, according to NASA scientists, the moon. And according to Who Built the Moon, Alan Butler, one of the authors, was told by a guy called Ken Johnson, supervisor of the Data and Photo Control Department during the Apollo missions, that when it was hit the second time, much more powerfully, the moon not only rang like a bell, but the whole moon wobbled in such a precise way that, quote, it was almost as though it had gigantic hydraulic damper struts inside it, you know.
And this must be from the L-Cross mission back in 2009, I think.
Well, they've been playing this out over many years and decades, and you know, as you well know, in around 1970, two scientists from the Soviet Academy of Sciences wrote a detailed article saying that they thought the moon was a gigantic spaceship, and when you also look at what some of the scientists have said with regard to why it vibrates and reverberates as it does and rings like a bell, is the idea that that it might be hollow. A NASA scientist, Gordon MacDonald, said in the early 1960s, that far back, it would seem that the moon is more like a hollow than an homogeneous sphere. And another one, Sean Solomon, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, he said that from the evidence that they'd gathered at that time, it indicated the frightening, quote, frightening possibility that the moon may be hollow. And as Carl Sagan, the great cosmologist, said, a natural satellite cannot be a hollow object. And for me, you know, again, when you can go on the internet, on YouTube, and see people like Sergeant Carl Wolf speaking from his experiences when he was a photographic engineer at the Langley Air Force Base in Virginia, of course, CIA, where he talks at the National Press Club, was it in Washington some few years ago, where he's and others are telling of their experiences inside the system, inside the game, if you like, of how they saw things that the public's never been told about. And of course, Sergeant Carl Wolf talked about the fact that he went over to an area in the Langley Air Force Base where he needed to do some repair work, and he was in the area where they were putting together what he called mosaics, you know, like pictures from different passes of the moon, over the moon, and then they were putting them together to make a whole picture. And he said that the guy over there showed him pictures and said, we found a base on the moon. He said, I saw the base on the moon and many other strange structures, like incredibly high, almost like towers, obelisk-like towers and domes and what have you. And other people talked at that event in Washington about how NASA was airbrushing out these things before pictures were released to the public. And it's very clear that there's a lot of activity on the surface of the moon. But what I'm saying, Henrik, is that's one aspect of it, yes. But what's the real key is inside the moon, because inside the moon is where it's all going on. Of course, there are things on the surface. Inside is where it's going on, and
do you believe then that sorry, David.
Go ahead, mate.
Do you believe that it's a? Are we talking about a technology being, broadcasted, emanated from the moon to planet Earth, or how do you perceive that?
Yes, absolutely that. Yes, and I think it's connected in that to Saturn. And what I found interesting was a year after this book came out, where I said that the moon was broadcasting a frequency field, which was having two effects. Part of it was blocking information we would normally decode, and the other thing it was doing was giving us information to create a false reality. You know, in the Matrix movie, if you change, when Morpheus is explaining the facts of the Matrix to Neo for the first time, if you take the quote and just put moon inside it, you pretty much got where I'm going with this, because the quote was, the Matrix, what I say, the moon matrix is everywhere. It is all around us, even now in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go out to work or when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. And that's what I'm saying this moon matrix is doing. And like I say, what I found interesting was when I had obviously written the book, it had come out, and just like, I think it was like 2 months ago, it's been out about 9 months now, I got this email from a lady, I think she was in Brazil, and she said, have you read a book called Earth by Barbara Marciniak? Now, I met Barbara Marciniak back in the 1990s. She became well known in that kind of arena for channeling information from what was said to be a Pleiadian source or a Pleiadian consciousness. So that's what was said. And she produced some books, an excellent one I thought called Bringers of the Dawn, but the other one called Earth I'd not read, even though, funnily enough, I had it on my bookshelf. So what she said was, here's some page numbers. I've just read your book, Human Race Get Off Your Knees. Here's some page numbers. You'll be interested to read this. And this is what those page numbers said. It was a channeled book, and basically explaining what was going on. And basically, it was about how a group of people, a large group of people, have come at this time to help make the change and help ease out this control system. Well, this is what it said. The moon is a very powerful electromagnetic computer. The energy from the moon has been beaming electromagnetic frequencies onto the Earth for eons now to maintain the two-stranded DNA. The moon is a satellite that was constructed. It was anchored outside Earth's atmosphere as a mediating and monitoring device, a supercomputer or eye in the sky. Earth must be owned by those who dwell there. However, it is not. You have outside gods, creator energies, who prevent you as a species from having free reign with your kundalini, because the potential of our energy field. The influence of the moon as a main satellite computer affects all of the Earth. The moon's programs have for eons been of great limitation toward human beings. They are repetitive cycles that the moon creates to which you respond. The moon matrix. And when I read that, I mean, it's another thing that happens in this sequence of events, Henrik, in my life for the last 21 years. When you've gone with something, often when you've gone with it, and you say, I'm going with this, it feels right to me, I feel this is right, then something will happen often that kind of gives you a confirmation. Yeah. Just says, yeah, see, look, it is right. And that's what I kind of hit me when I read that, because what I've just read from that book is, as you will know, it's in what I'm saying in my book, and it was such a powerful kind of whoa confirmation for me that we're going in the right direction here. Not that everything is 100% right. We're trying to uncover something doesn't want to be uncovered. I mean, crikey. The moon's not real. The moon's not what you think it is. And I thought, all right then. You know, because I've been through this sequence so many times, it's like, okay, well, we'll go with this and see where it goes. Mm-hmm. So I put in a few key words into a search engine, and immediately up before me came a book called Who Built the Moon? Yep. By Christopher Knight. And first of all, I get this, if you like, insight out of nowhere. And from that moment, information, like physical information, if you like, regarding that subject starts coming into my life. Mm-hmm. And this happened with the moon, because when I started out to write Human Race, Get Off Your Knees, I was not intending to write anything about the moon. And I came in one morning, must be about 18 months ago now, and I sat down in this chair, and the energy in the room changed. And, of course, after 20 years, you get to know the sequence. The energy, the atmosphere changed. And I thought, here we go. And clear as anything, through my mind, it just said Alan Butler. So I thought, well, let's make a start. I'll read that. So I sent for it, read it very quickly. And it absolutely was pointing in the direction of what I just come through my mind, if you like. And you know what it's like? It very much going back to what I've just been talking about. When you come into this world, you tend to accept that what is here is how it is. This is how things are, mate. This is one reason why, you know, we, the generations who've seen a different world to this one, are very, very important and have a very great responsibility, because we, to some extent, have the ability to see how things were, to how they've become. People being born into the world now, all this control